Have you ever wondered why there aren't more blue trout flies? Well, I've wondered that too, and I really don't know. Maybe it's because blue is not a natural color, but neither is red or purple, and we tie a lot of red and purple flies. But I did come up with a blue streamer a few years ago, and I'd forgotten all about it until I started thinking about blue flies. And why I remembered it is because I caught fish with it, and I couldn't remember the exact circumstances until I looked up my fishing log from 2018. And it turns out the first time I used this pattern was on the Savage River just a couple of days before Christmas. So that's a good reason to keep a log, because this was kind of a funny situation that I would have totally forgotten if I hadn't written it down. I was fishing the big pool just downstream of the Allegheny footbridge. I was drifting it down and then stripping it back. And after a few strips through there, no takes, I had a lot of slack at my feet, so I was reeling in the slack and getting ready to go to another spot. And then as soon as I reeled all the slack in and the reel was pulling the fly in a little bit, a fish came up from a rock and swam about 4 feet across and took this fly. Now, he was a decent fish. He wasn't huge, or I'm sure I would have remembered him. And according to my log, I did catch one more fish that day on this streamer. And as far as I can remember, I only caught one more fish on this. It was later that winter on the middle fork of Crabtree Creek, which is just one of the smaller tributaries that flow into the main stem of the Savage, which I'll go there sometimes if I feel like chasing really small brook trout with my 2-weight. And I remember sneaking up to this pool on my knees, and some small little brook trout took it on the first cast. Now, I didn't chalk this up to this being some super successful fly, because that fish probably would have eaten anything I'd drifted through his pool. But this fly, I have no idea why I've forgotten about it over the last 3 or 4 years. I never really gave it a chance to see if it's one that I want to tie and try fishing more. But maybe I will now. And one note on the first one I tied, it's identical to the one I'm about to tie for you, except I used a light brown bucktail for the topping. But get this, the one I'm about to show you, I'm using cinnamon bear on top. And this stuff, Paul from Arkansas sent me this not long ago, and shame on me for not using it until now, because this is some really cool stuff. And I know some of you may be wondering, where can you get bear fur? Well, black bear fur is not hard to come by, but this light brown cinnamon color bear fur, it might be a little hard to find. I have seen it recently on eBay, and just today I did find a seller on Etsy that had some. Of course, depending on when you're watching this video, that might be long gone, but it really isn't all that hard to find. You just have to look for it. But if you can't find any and you really want to tie a fly like this, I think the next best substitute would actually be a craft fur. And Hairline does have a cinnamon colored craft fur. And then maybe an Arctic fox. I think that would be a decent substitution as well. Okay, since I really haven't given this fly a name, and we're not doing another Name the Fly holiday streamer contest until Halloween, let's do that for this one. Just leave a comment with what you think we should call this one. I'll pick the top 4 or 5, we'll put it up for a vote, and just to make it more fun, I will send the winner a $25 gift card to Jay Stockard. But one more note I want to mention, when this video is published, I'm going to be out of town for work, so I might not be able to respond to all the comments, but I'll get to them before the end of the week. So that's it. I'm really looking forward to hearing what y'all come up with. So there it is in the vise. Pretty simple, but I think a pretty cool looking, fairly generic streamer. Bucktail, minnow pattern, whatever you want to call it. And I'm tying this one a size 6. This is a 3X long. This is a Sprite barbless hook. And I'm going to use black thread, so just lay a base down to the start of the bend. Now for the tail, I've just used white marabou, a small tuft of marabou, and then just really want the tip of it right there, so I think that's going to be enough. Now, if you don't want to waste a whole marabou feather on a tail for a streamer like this, I would say, white wool will be just fine. Let's go ahead and snip this off and try to bury this as smooth as we can. We don't really want a big lump when we tie in our floss body, but before we do that, we're going to tie in a rib. And I use a silver Mylar in a size small. I think it's a 14, so let's just catch this right on top here. Let me park this with my magnet so it doesn't keep flipping back up. Now let's catch in our body. Blue floss here. And this is what I think makes the fly, one of the coolest attributes of the fly is this kind of bright blue body. So let's catch this in all the way back, and be economical with your thread wraps back here because we've already got kind of a lump or a little step down. So go ahead and take your thread almost all the way up. We don't have a whole lot going on up front, but you know, a couple eye lengths back should be fine. Now just wrap your floss up, and you might want to consider going up and then back down and then up again. Now you can tell I've still got a little bit of a thick area in the back there, and I've got a couple of, you know, fibers that came out of my floss right there that we can just trim or not worry about them. Now let's just wrap this up, and this will be your preference to how close together you want these. It really just depends on how much flash you want on the fly. Now let's tie in the first component of our wing, which is going to be some black bear hair. And if you don't have bear, a good substitute is skunk. And if you don't have that, I would just, you know, go with some kind of black bucktail, but keep it pretty sparse. Bucktail is going to be a little bit thicker than this bear. I think it'll work fine for you, but it will add a little bit more bulk to it. Now the next thing I'm going to tie in here is some cinnamon bear. And again, the first ones of these I tied, I just put a thin, you know, tuft of lighter brown bucktail. But this cinnamon bear is some cool looking stuff. And I'm digging it. So thanks to Phil for sending me this. Just want to catch this right on top of that black. Try to get a little bit of, you know, separation, keep the separation between the black and the light brown. Now I think I have nicked my thread here. Gosh, I do that a lot. I know it's not my bobbin, but I think we can work through that. Just bury all those little fibers in our head. So go ahead and take your thread right back up to the eye and then ramp it back up. And I'm going to whip finish this one here at the back of the head. And there we go, a drop of head cement, and this thing's ready to fish. Now this one could be a little bit cleaner. The back of that right there, you see a little bit of that marabou sticking through, but it's still a perfectly fishable fly, and I still kind of dig it. So that's it, everybody. I appreciate you watching. Make sure to let me know in the comments what you think we should name this thing.